Hey everyone, I'm back. And so now I'll be talking about Major League Baseball. So first, let's get into the Boston Red Sox. Obviously, everyone should know by now the Boston Red Sox have won the World Series. They beat the Los Angeles Dodgers in 5 games. The MVP of the World Series was Steve Pearce, although David Price could have won as well. So there's that, and they had their parade today, and that was all great and fun. I'm sure for the fans of Boston, the Red Sox, and probably some baseball fans in general. Sure, here in New York, not many people are happy, especially with them, putting the New York song blasting it and all that. Some people aren't appreciating that. But overall, obviously they won. They won the regular season, they won in the preseason, and now they won the championship in the postseason. So great on for the Red Sox. Obviously they did what they had to do and they're champions. But it was interesting today to see the parade that this obviously fans are very excited that they won over there in Boston. But it was crazy to see that some of the fans were throwing beers at some of the players who were on the who were in the parade. And obviously there were players that caught it and players that were having fun with it, but there were some mishaps as well. The Boston Red Sox fan, one of them threw a beer and it hit the manager of the Red Sox, Alex Cora, and he wasn't too pleased about that. And then also another one that a fan threw, unfortunately, it actually hit the World Series championship itself. That was interesting, and then it got damaged. And now let's see. I'm sure whoever it is, I don't know if it's in Major League Baseball, I don't know if it's the Red Sox, I don't know who would actually have to fix that or pay for that. I'm sure it's probably Major League Baseball, but that's gonna have to be fixed, and that's kind of crazy. I know fans are very excited about these things, but just hopefully in the future, some players, whether it's players, management, or maybe before they start, tell people, listen, cheer, yell, get excited, but please don't throw things because they were throwing beers, and that's dangerous. Like they could hurt people. It hit Alex Cora, he seemed okay. It dented the championship and did some damage there. I'm sure that's going to get fixed. It's nothing too crazy, but for the future, I'm sure they're going to have to let people know you have to be a little more calmer and just a little more relaxed when the next championship comes, whether it's Boston or a different fan group, who knows. But that was just, I thought, something interesting to mention. And obviously, the World Series came and talk about that, but just to see how fans reacted and the things that took place there. But now on to the offseason of Major League Baseball. Let's start off with the Mets. The New York Mets season last season was not great. It obviously they wanted to be a lot better, but injuries happened and derailed them, and unfortunately, they could never get back on track, even though they had that great early start. But they hired a new GM. He is someone that comes from. He is not someone that is everyday kind of retread kind of guy. He is someone that was a former agent, and he was actually agents. He was agents for a couple of players on this team. With some of the starting pitchers, Cespedes, and things like that. So it's going to be interesting how this is received. A lot of fans and people are taking this negatively because the New York Mets. They seem to never get anything right. And why would they get something right with in this respect of hiring someone, a GM who never had experience, who comes from a different aspect of this and from a different purview? Why would they get this right? Now, I understand what they're saying, and it's going to be interesting because how are players going to react to this? How are they going to, like, players who that was their agent, like, oh snap, my GM is now my agent, or other agents or other players who had him, and like, oh my god, this guy's the GM of another team, and he was my agent. I don't know how they can react or how they feel about it, and I wonder if I doubt did the owners or whoever was involved in making the decisions even tell the players, hey, listen, this is someone we're obviously, I'm sure they knew once they saw the hiring process was going on and the media and all that. But I wonder if they talked to players like, hey, this is someone we're considering. What do you think about it? I doubt they did that. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it's received from players within the team, players from outside the team, and how will this affect them going forward. It seems like whatever the GM, whatever agent he was for those players, he's probably not going to be in the room when it comes to making signing them, giving them a new deal and contract and things like that, because I think it's a conflict of interest. So he'll have the under guy, the not underlings, but the under guys who are a little below him that always work cohesion with him, will probably make the contract and he'll be on the sidelines. He'll probably tell them what this is what I would like to happen or this is the numbers, and they'll just have to present it to the agent or to the pitcher, whoever, how it works out. They do the contract. So in that respect, that's gonna be something interesting. But honestly, I think this is interesting. And usually the Mets don't make I want to say smart choices, but there's things that you never really like, oh, say, wow, that's interesting. I think this is an interesting thing. And I think if it works out great, I think this is a smart move for the Mets. But this is only one aspect of it. I mean, you got to get obviously the players back, but you also have to have more of an analytical group. I know people don't like analytics in baseball, but it proves that it can work in the regular season. The postseason, that's a different story, but there is room for it in the postseason. You just got to mix it in, like with Alex Cora, what he did to win the World Series and even the postseason, how he did it, and in the regular season. But for the Mets, they're gonna have to figure this out. This is step one, and I think it could work. The reason I think it could work is from what I've read and from what I've heard and even seen. This guy wants the Mets to compete. So that's something that already I'm sure the ownership is happy about. They're not going to tear this down. They're going to work with it and try to make it into a winning culture or a winning team. So I just think coming from his as an agent, he has so many things he's got to think about. There's so many players that he's going to have, and he recruits them from high school. So not taking into part of the personal, but more of just the information that he would have and the knowledge that he would bring. I think it could work out in that respect because he's got to create his own scouting report for players. I know now that they have analytical teams that do all that, but before that, I'm sure him and other agents had to come up with their own sheet and own thing to create for their players to present to ownership. So he's just going to bring another perspective and he's going to be knowledgeable. Yeah, he's going to be lacking a lot of experience baseball wise, but I'm sure there's going to be people there under him who are baseball lifers and will help him tremendously to figure this out. So if I'm not saying it's gonna go perfectly because nothing can go perfectly because it's not a perfect world, but I think this might be ideal if they do it right. If he knows honestly what he can do as an agent, the information he has, and he really wants to do this because I think he has to. Because after doing this, I don't know if you can go back to being an agent so quickly. Just because it's gonna be weird. Like, oh, you were the GM, now you're not the GM, now you're gonna be our agent again, but does that mean you're always going to be looking for another GM job down the road? So I think he's in it for the long haul. So I don't think this is just a flash in the pan. Oh, I'm going to be a GM, and then whatever happens, happens. I think he really is going to take this seriously. He wants to put the Mets on the map, but that means that not just him, but the ownership. The owners of the Mets have to really, really work with him and figure things out. Whether that's more money, you know, for the baseball team, whether it's more money for scouting, more money for analytics. They really got to make these decisions and work in unison and really do a different thing. You can't just do the same thing, hire this guy, and then when he asks you, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that, and he says, oh, I'm sorry, you can't do any of those things. Just stick to the script. No, this has got to be, they got to change things up, they got to fix things up, and they got to do it in a different way. You can obviously have the players who have, for multiple reasons, they really can't do anything about it because most of the core of the Mets players are under contract for multiple years. So it wouldn't make sense to blow us up or try to trade them really, unless, unfortunately, this season becomes a dumpster fire where they just keep losing games and are not really winning. Then you just kind of have to start anew because I don't know. I don't think you could do this again. So they really just have to give him a chance to do what he can do. The Mets have to figure this out, and I think they can. It's not going to be easy, but I think the Mets can do it. I think especially you can see from this season when they were unfortunately not that great towards the end, they still competed in the National League, whether it was whether it was the other teams in the division, whether it was other teams in the National League, they were competitive against them. They beat the Phillies. They beat other teams. They beat they faced the Braves and were competitive against them. So all these teams that people are worried about, oh, they're not gonna stack up. They did last season. So if they can build on that, which sometimes doesn't happen, but even if you could do it somewhat, I think this has a chance of working out. There's leeway and there's room, and I think it could really work out for the Mets. It may not be perfect and it may not be what they want exactly, but I think it's going to be a good step moving forward and something that could work out. but they have to take it seriously and they really have to figure out how they're going to do this and just a different way because obviously doing it the same way is not working for them. All right, so now I'm going to move on to the Yankees. The New York Yankees offseason, it has already started. They brought back Brett Gardner. They did not sign him to his club option of $12 million. What they did was so they bought him out of his 12 million dollar 1 year contract, the club option. So what that means is the Yankees, Brett Gardner out of that deal got $2 million from that. Excuse me. Then they did was sign him to a new contract where he got $7 million. And from what I heard, is the $2 million accounts for this current season, 2018, the season that just passed. It counts towards that, and the $7 million going forward for next season. So yeah, it's $9 million technically, and that is kind of a lot of money because really all they did was save. They saved really was $2.5 million. And yeah, that's $2.5 million that can be used for something else. So I get it, but it's kind of weird. Like you're gonna go from 12 to basically 10 or really 9. And I get they save money, but I thought they were gonna do more of like, all right, Brett, we buy you out of your contract. That's $2 million you get. Then we'll give you five, maybe $6 million, and you get like three. They save 3, 4 million. But no, they went this route, and I'm glad they brought back Brett Gardner because he's a good player. He's not what he used to be, it appears like, but you never know. Sometimes things you have bad seasons, but the problem with Brett is he always starts out great but never ends well. And especially this season, it started even earlier, so it looks even worse for him. So I get why they did this and it makes sense. And I'm glad they brought him back. But then this causes some issues for other things. Does that mean they're not going to get Bryce Harper? It looks like they may not. Because how are you going to do that? You have already Giancarlo Stanton. You have Aaron Hicks. You have Jacoby Ellsbury. He's been injured, but he's going to come back supposedly healthy sometime in the season. Then you also have Clint Frazier, the outfielder in the minor leagues, and he's really good, but unfortunately he's been dealing with severe concussion issues. But it looks like he's going to be finally healthy. So it would just be so many people. How are you going to do this? Unless you talk to the Dodgers and Stanton, from what people have said and from what I've heard and read, that he would willing to waive his no trade clause for the Dodgers. But do the Dodgers want that? I don't know. They might think, why would we go for Stanton when we could go for Harper? The only thing is, yeah, you have Giancarlo Stanton for a long time, but it's going to be less money than what probably Bryce Harper is going to get because Bryce Harper is looking for that, long term contract, and he's young enough to get 10 years, $300 million or something like that, or maybe more. So that's one way of looking at it. But you're going to get someone who's a little bit younger. If the Dodgers get Harper, they're looking for someone younger, and so it may not work out that way. So most likely the Yankees are not going to get Bryce Harper. It appears like, but who? Hey, you never know. Things might happen. They might say, hey, we'll figure something out. We'll do something else. Who knows? But then so it seems like that they're out for the Bryce Harper thing. But they might still be in for Manny Machado. Because remember, the shortstop is unfortunately he's injured. So you have to figure that out. I know you can do some stuff, but the Yankee shortstop is injured. Didi Gregorius, obviously, that's his name. He's injured, so you got to figure out what you're going to do with that. So they might be in for Machado, not Harper, but we'll see how this shakes up. And that's it for baseball. I will be back with some NBA.